Hello everyone, welcome back for another video tutorial. So for this video, we have already now finished module 3 and we will start the new module, which is module number 4 when we talk about the use of JQuery. JQuery is the name of the frameworks that allow us to develop responsive web applications. It's the legacy one because it has been used by many websites around the world for decades, I would say, and therefore it still remain very robust one, good ones, and it is good to understand about it. Okay, so in this tutorial, now let's go ahead and look at our previous example when we have the fixed predefined table data like this. Now, what if I would like to have dynamic behavior when I can add more information at the runtime or be able to control the use of button and be able to also get the data from the text as well. So let's talk about what we call jQuery selector first. Okay, so let's go ahead and now go back to our work one more time. And in order to work with jQuery, then I'm going to now let's add another UI component right here. So I'm gonna leave table alone here and we're gonna come back and finish them together. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna put the UI components that allow me to enter, okay, the new products in there. So for example, over here, I'm gonna have the input box. And just to make it simple for now, first, I'm gonna put this is gonna be the name. I'm gonna have to put the ID as well for easiness. Okay, so it's gonna be like this. And then let's put, because we have ID name and QTY, and yeah, that's it. So therefore we need 3 of this. Then you can have QTY, the second one is going to be name. Okay, and you end up having these 3 things together. As I told you earlier, that you can also apply the class, styling class for each input so that it look better and responsive to the screen size as well. So that's why in this case, okay, if you are using Visual Studio Code, then you can just select the multiple column by pressing alternate and control or commands on your editors, and then you can type class equal to, and then something like that. And you can also put the same class, which is form control. Okay, and that would look a little bit different from the previous one. Okay, so now you got that done. What else? You can also introduce the left and right margin. So let me go ahead and do this as well. So it's going to be mx2. So that's introduce margin for both sides. Okay, we just introduce the margin only for the input. Okay, but let's just keep that as is. But if you like, okay, just to introduce this as well, why don't we just put this into a label? All right, so we're gonna have label tag for the ID. Then we also have the label tag for the name and the label tag for the QTY. Okay, and that's for QTY. And whenever you want to adjust the alignment of your code automatically, you can install a plugin from here. It's called Beautify something. Okay, and that one would give you ability to format your code easier. So in my case, let me show you that if I place Command Shift P on Mac, if you are using Windows, you can place Control Shift P. Then you can click Beautify the file, and you can see that now you got a good alignment as well. Okay, cool. What else? Then in this case, I can apply the same margin for label as well. So let me put class equal to, put mx2, and we apply this class for all of the label, and then this label as well. Okay, and that would give me this look. And okay, the second one should name. Right. Okay, and I should have a button. When I click over here, it should take ID name QTY and do something for me. So in this case, I can go ahead and take a button tag and then apply the class of Bootstrap, which is btn outline. I love the blue one, so let me go for the primary one and say add right here. Okay, and again, so we're gonna apply the mx as well as my, so that it has the margin for both sides. Okay, cool. All right, now what else? The first thing that I want to be able to do is that I want to be able to get the data from whenever user enter here. For example, if user enter 4 p4 and qty equal to, let's say 440, then I like to be able to, when I click on add, I can take those data. Okay, so we're gonna have to learn two things: how to take the text from the text boxes like that. How do we register for the click event so that when user click on it, it does something for us. So therefore over here, then we need to use the concept that we call the selector function from JQuery. So in JQuery here, so in order to use that, you need to have the script tag. In the script tag, then you use the in JQuery framework, you can easily select any UI components by referencing to their ID or names or class. So that means, let's say that you want to get data from here, then you should assign the ID first. For example, over here for input, you can say that that's going to be your txt ID, and this is going to be ID for txt name, and the last one is going to be ID equal to txt qty. Alright, so we got 3 different ID. Now what I want from here is that I would like to also reference to the button as well. So let me put the ID right here. So let's call it btn add. Now let's take a look at how I name my variable. I use txt to represent my input text. I use btn to represent a button. Okay, so you can use different naming convention up to you. Okay, so after you have done this, then the next step is how do we reference to each ID. So first, let's say I want to assign the click event. So therefore, you can use the selector function. So selector function got the name equal to the $sign. That's the name of selector function. And to call the function, you put parentheses. Inside parentheses, you specify or you define which one you want to work with. Let's say you want to work with button. You put the name, the ID of that button. But hey, in terms of the selection of the ID in JQuery, don't forget to put the hashtag as well to denote the ID. Okay, all right, and then you say that okay, after your selection here, this selection will return this object. This object have ability to call function click to register for the click events, and then you can define your callback function. Let's call it cb1, for example. This is what happened whenever user click on this item or on this ID, then cb1 will get called for you. So you can define the function cb1 below here, and for the function cb1, then what it does, we can test it first. So we want to say yes. So when we refresh this, when I click over here, you can see that now it shows the alert message saying yes. That's good. What else? Then whenever we click over here, we want to obtain the data from those text boxes. Now to work with those text boxes, we have already defined the ID for each one of them. Therefore, you can reference to the data for each text box this way. So first, you can say that the ID now will be equal to something from here. Now something from here can be obtained by saying, hey, selector function, I want you to select this guys, and this guy have the ID equal to txt ID. So we put txt ID, and don't forget the hashtag because we reference to the ID. And then to obtain this value, we call functions from this reference. Okay, so this statement gives you the value of the ID. Then same thing over here. You can also copy this and make changes. So that's going to be the second text box. This is the last one. That's going to be your name. This is going to be your QTY. And sorry about this. This should be QTY like this. And now what you can do is that after you already make the output here, okay, you can console log each value. For example, you can console log the ID, you can console log the names and QTY as well. Now let me open console area here and refresh it. Now if I put like 4, P4 and 40, then when I click add, you can see that we got those 4 different information correctly done, which is good. Now the next step is we want to combine this as the new object so that we can add it in here. Therefore, instead of just console this log, we create the new object. So we say new products equal to, and then we put object notation. That's the end of function. And in here, you can just put ID, name, and QTY. Now, if this is like a definite name like this without a dot, then you can just include this like this without defining your information name, or you can do it this way as well if you like. But starting from ES number 6, they allow you to just put the name of this reference, and they will assume that information name will be equivalent as well. Okay, now you can console log the new object, which is new products, and the output will show you, oh sorry, because I haven't put anything yet, so for P4 and 40. Okay, they say console, oh sorry, it's console log. Let me refresh it real quick. One more time for P4 40, and that's the result. As you can see, whenever you get the data and you form it like this, you can also rename this. If you don't like the word ID, you can say products ID like this. And then when you do it again here, it's going to be 4, P4 and 40s, and the output is product ID like this. But I think there's something interesting to make a notice that all the value that you get from your text box using selector function, the output format is in text, text, and text. We know that this should be number. This should be number. Therefore, if you want to convert this into number, then you can just put number here. Okay, just to make conversion, and you can take the number function and take that as the input. Okay, now let's try again one more time for P4 and 40, and that would give you the output. And you can see that this time the product ID both of the and QTY both have the numeric value 4 and 40 as well. Okay, now you got the products, but we want to add it as the new rows inside here. How do we do this? Well, now we have already covered up to this point. We use document selector one more time. When we talk about this, we use $sign function as the selector. And then whenever you want to register for a click event, then you use .click, and you pass the input, which is the callback function name. That function will be called when user click on this item. To get the data from the text box, then you have to use the selector function again, but this time we call .val, meaning we want to get the value from here, and again the value from those text box is in text format, so that's why we use function number to convert any text value into numeric value. Okay, now how can we create the dynamic table? That's gonna be the topic. Okay, so therefore now how can I create the new rows? Well, if you look at the contents of here, you can see that the new row will have the structure like this, tr, td. So first, how do we define the tr? Well, simply over here, you can create another function. Let's call it tr. For what the tr does is that it takes just some text as the input, let me call t, and return this static one, which is tr plus the t plus the end of the tag, which is tr, and the end of the tag like this. This is the end of the function. Now let me test this for you. So I'm going to call this as the very beginning here, that if I want to take tr and then let's take abc as the input, okay, and I want to console log this as the output. Let's say this is output, this is okay, new rows equal to this, and I can console log the new rows. So that will look exactly what we like because it's gonna have tr. So therefore over here you can see that it's show tr and something in between. Now this is not the complete story because when you look at your rows you can see that we don't want just the text in here, we want composition of multiple td like this. So therefore how to have td just look like that? Well, we create another function. Let's copy this and then we take this tr and rename it as the td. Also because we want the structure that have the td as the inside, so you can just put d. Okay, and now what we want to test is that what about if I have td? As you can see now that it's going to give you td like this. So now we know that now we can create the td tag and the tr tag as well, but the tr we just need 3 of them inside the tr. Therefore you can do it this way. So you can say that I'm gonna have td of my, let's say fig it first, it's gonna be 4 plus the td of the p4 like this, and it's gonna look like this. The output will have now two structure, td and another td. Therefore that means if you want to support the qty as well, so you can put another td and then you can put the qty, let's say 40, you end up having this. Okay, 3 of them now, which is almost identical to this except that you need to include this as the part of the tr. So therefore over here you can just say that that's going to be part of the tr. So you just copy this and then you call tr function and then you take everything as the input, because we know that this one, this highlight will return this guy. So this guy is going to be taking as the input right here, and this function will return this that enclosed by the tr and the end of the tr tag. Okay, now let me show you the output one more time. As you can see, that's gonna be the one that now exactly match our patterns. Now the next question is, you've got the static text that look like tag, but it's not actually the ones that you can actually directly put it into your web browser yet. But you can get the help from JQuery to turn your dummy static text into an active tag, the raw tags that you can add it into your table. So in order to add new thing into table, of course, you're going to have to assign the ID for your table as well. So let's go to your table and then assign the ID equal to table 1. So that's the must. And then let's go down to this component right now. By the time that you got the new component right here, right? So what I want is I just want to create a new static tag first before I turn it into what we call active tag. So therefore, I'm gonna create this one based on this data. So let me go ahead and now let's move this guy downward here. So it's gonna be things below, and I'm gonna replace that for with ID. Or you can actually use representation now that that's gonna be new products dot ID. For easiness, you can just try to put it this way. So it look understandable by everyone. So now the second data that you want to fill in is going to be the name, and the last data is going to be qty. Okay, and now what else? Then whenever you already have new rows, then you can say that this new row is just like static HTML tag. It's just static text of, it's not actually part of this yet until you turn it first into the smart tag. So say convert the static text into active HTML tag here. How we do this? Well, you can just use selector function again, and you say that, hey, selector function, aside from being able to make the selection from components, get the value, assign the click, you have another ability to turn static tag into active tag. So let's take new row as the input. After this calling, you're gonna get the tag in the memory, and that's become an object that you can call function append to append this tag itself into the table 1. So you can just say that we want to put it into table 1, but hey, this is the ID again, so that's why don't forget to put the hashtag here. Okay, so now let's test our things right here. So now I'm gonna put ID equal to 4, name equal to TP4, QTY equal to 40s. When I say add, you can see that now there's something that is added, but there are some missing things. So right here it's called undefined. That's because I believe that let's take a look at my work right here. This is code number 5, right? And then this data is coming from this one. So this data is defined as the ID, but unfortunately I just rename it as product ID. That's why it doesn't understand who is ID. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep this back to ID, so that this should give us the same name. So it's gonna be 4 P4 and 40s, and you get the new rows like that. First, this row will be made based on this function to give you a static tag. The static tag now will be converted into active one using the selector function. And when it becomes active, what does that mean? It means it has ability to call function append to append itself into this table. Now you can try it again. So now instead of 4, you can put 5, and then you can put P6, P5 and 50 at this, as you can see. Okay, so I hope that this tutorial would allow you to look up this JavaScript in the different dimensions. So now you know that based on the static design up right here, so if you know everything at design time, that's great. I mean, you can just put it right there. But for the real world applications, this is not defined at the design time. Somehow we're gonna get it somewhere in your computation or from the server. That is why it's very important to learn the new framework that we call JQuery. Allow you to interact with the component, register the click, get the value of the text, be able to add things into the table this way. Okay, so I think that is going to be the end of this module. So in the next module, we will focus our discussion on why do we need the better framework. jQuery is a good framework already here, but if you have to do a lot of things to control your behavior of your web application, jQuery will take it longer, and you're going to need to end up having a lot of code. Therefore, right now, nowadays, there are many major components such as AngularJS, Vue.js, or React.js. Those are what we call reactive framework. It have the better programming models that allow you to create your web application easier, faster, and it's more robust as well. Okay, we can talk about that in the next video tutorial. Thanks a lot for this. Have a good day. Thank you.